The Zoom is yours.
Oh. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Deputy Chief of Mission here at the Embassy of Argentina, Gerardo Díaz Bartolomé, Jerry, as everybody calls me. And it's a pleasure to be here today to give the opening remarks to this very special event, Treasure Hunting for Wines in Patagonia. I would like to start by expressing our gratitude to Nora Favelukes, the one and only, the expert who has made this webinar possible after 30 years of experience of having followed Argentine wine as it was emerging on world stage. I would also like especially to thank the 23 wineries that have contributed to make this event possible, and Nora will graciously later mention them one by one. I think we also have here the representative of Wines of Argentina, Verónica Caturia, our colleagues from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Buenos Aires, and our colleagues in our consulates here in the United States, Atlanta, Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Miami, and New York. Welcome all, and thank you so much. Without your support and the amazing network of cooperation we have established, initiatives like this would not be possible and so successful. And my special hello to the around 300 people and guests who have joined us today for this event. We are very happy as we believe in the importance of this type of events because they keep us all updated about the new trends in Argentina's wine industry. And with the participation of an expert like Nora, we get to learn and know about the pioneers and the new wine regions they made possible through their effort, initiative, and yes, of course, courage and vision. As many of you might know, in recent years, producers have been pushing the wine frontier more and more to the south in Argentina, far beyond the 45th parallel south, in Chubut province, right there in Patagonia, as I said, and also to the east, with new projects in cities, unexpected cities like Chapadmalal near the world-famous Mar del Plata on the Atlantic coast. Of course, although Mendoza is the most world-renowned wine region in Argentina, wines from Patagonia are also still growing their way into the awareness of the United States market. Their growth conditions in high-altitude vineyards, dry and cool climate, including some coastal locations as Mar del Plata, as I just mentioned, bring to us wines with specific and unique notes that the US consumer palate must come to know and, of course, enjoy. And this is the main objective of today's webinar, to present to you all the new treasures in Patagonia, share with you the best and newest trends in wines coming from this specific region. And yes, get ready for the hunt. We are going to hunt them either here in the US stores, or why not, hopefully soon, if you can travel to this region in Argentina. In a nutshell, with us we have today a true expert on these crisscrossing frontiers by pioneers and on the explosion of creativity derived from the expansion of new altitudes, soil mapping, adoption of sustainable and biodynamic practices, Pampa, Rio Negro, Neuquén, and Chubut. Before giving Nora the Zoom floor, as we say in these digital events, let me first invite you all to travel virtually and enjoy Patagonia. So fasten your seatbelts, fly with our minds to meet these new regions, and of course, let's then toast to the treasures that will no longer be hidden or unknown after Nora's presentation. So cheers, enjoy the trip.
Thank you, Jerry, and thank you, Maria Luz. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the wines of Patagonia. And thank you for joining us. Such a pleasure to be here and to know that we are all united by our passion for wine. So let us dive into Patagonia. Seba? Oh, by the way, I want to thank Sebastian, who is the person who is helping me with the slides. We're going to see a film now. So here we are, let's dive into Patagonia. Patagonia represents 38% of the national territory and is inhabited by only 3.5% of the population. A big territory, very few people. Since the early 1830s and through the 1890s, the US Army expanded into the western frontier in America. At the same time, the Argentine military was expanding to the south. In 1879, General Roca, who later became President Roca, he had an army of 6,000 men who pushed the frontier of Argentina south down to the Rio Negro, where it says Rio Negro Upper Valley, the Rio Negro. So that's where the frontier started. And later on, there was a railroad, and I will tell you more stories. But what General Roca did was what we call in Argentina, la conquista del desierto, the conquest of the desert. Regarding the climate, the main characteristics of Patagonia is the South Pacific Ocean winds. Very strong winds that come from the west to the east. And while they are crossing the Andes, because it's the lower part of the Andes, they can rush into and go all the way up north, up to the Rio Negro lower valley. And it's interesting because the Rio Negro lower valley, where Sebastian is showing us now, the Atlantic Ocean is only 12 miles away, but the effect, the most important effect, is actually the Pacific Ocean winds. These winds, they dump the humidity in the mountains. So where we see El Hoyo and Trevelin, those are the two wine regions in Chubut, they are like forest, really, trees, great humidity. But when it goes eastward to the Rio Negro lower valley, there is a semi-arid climate because the winds are dry. So the vineyards have to protect themselves from the wind. And how do they do it? The producers have to plant poplar trees. The grapes also need to protect themselves from the wind. And what do? They thicken their skin. So we have the same effect in Salta for a different reason. In Salta, our northernmost province, is very, very hot, and the vineyards are very close to the mountains, to the sun. And because of that, the grapes thicken. In Patagonia, the wind has that effect. So because of the grapes, they have the skin that is very thick, the wines have greater color and more tannins. Another threat in Patagonia is spring frost. Frost happens mostly in Chubut, but also it happens in the northern part of Patagonia. And frost is really very dangerous because when it happens, it can kill the sap and kill the vine. So the vineyards in Chubut, they have to really protect, everybody has to protect themselves from the frost. So it's very hard. Another condition is the hot nights and the hot days and cold nights. This high thermal amplitude, we can say that in the Andes Mountains, where we see El Hoyo and Trevelin, the difference of temperature between night and day is around 55 degrees Fahrenheit. In the center, where there is Paso del Sapo and also the Colorado River Valley, that area is around 40 degrees Fahrenheit, the difference between night and day temperature. In the coast, on the east side, there is not such high. So when we have high thermal amplitude, the wines will have great acidity and good balance between the acidity and the fruit. Another condition is the varied soils. Soils can vary 1 inch to the other, but definitely the ones in El Hoyo and Trevelin, the ones who are embedded in the mountains, they are very rich mineral organic soils. The ones as we move forward to the north and to the east, the wines have sandy, clay, rocky, and we find a little bit of clay and limestone in the Rio Negro middle valley. The skies are clear, and the sunlight shines with great luminosity all throughout the year, but in the summertime is from 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. So this light also contributes to the for the grapes to have a very slow process of maturation. Now we're going to the skies in Patagonia. So this is the view of the skies in Patagonia at night. So we have to take a pause and we have to imagine that we are in this here after the long day of trekking and fly fishing, and we are feasting on a lamb or a trout with a good wine from Patagonia. So, salud. I hope you have a glass of Patagonian wines. I'm going to tell you what I have. You don't need to ask me. The wine that I have is a Pinot Noir, of Rosé of Pinot Noir, and it's old vines from Patagonia, from Rio Negro. Delicious, very flavorful. So salud to all of you. So, Ingeniero Guillermo Barsi, Humberto Canales' great nephew, worked with the National Institute of Agricultural Technology to work on the denomination of origin. And a few years later, we have the resolution that Patagonia and Patagonia, Argentina, are IG. They have a geographic indication. So this is very important, and it is for wines that are harvested and produced in the region. And this is one of the slides, the information I love the most. This is about the pioneers, as Jerry mentioned. This is a pioneering story. In Rio Negro, we have Humberto Canale, Julio Viola in Neuquén, Maria and Tate Armando Lawson in La Pampa, and Bernardo Weiner in Chubut. I had the pleasure of speaking to all of them, except Humberto Canale, but I spoke with his great nephew, Guillermo Barsi, a few days ago. And I wish I had time to tell you all the stories, magnificent stories that they told me. They're incredible, because it's all about, like Sherry mentioned, pioneers, is vision, but also is hardship, is their dreams, making it happen. So I really admire the four of them. And without the pioneers, we wouldn't have the foreign. Here we have Paul Hobbs, Michel Roland, and Alberto Antonini, that were the flying winemakers who made the Argentine wine industry happen, because they came to Salta and Mendoza a few years back. And we have Hans Winding Diers, who also, he came directly to Rio Negro, and I have to say, he never left. The thing that makes it special is that these flying winemakers, they landed in Argentina, and all of them built a winery. They're making their own wine. That's something unusual that consultants decide to. So that's the magic of Argentina. And with the foreign, we have the local. So this is a short list of all the winemakers and vineyard managers that are responsible for the Patagonian wine industry. And thanks to them, thanks to the foreign, thanks to the pioneers, we have what we have now. So La Pampa IG, all the wine regions in Patagonia, they have the geographic indication. And when you see this slide, this is the perfect picture for La Pampa that we all have. But it's not the true, all the Pampa. This is the first half of the Pampa of the grasslands and the cows and the cattle, the beef, the famous grass-fed beef that we have in Argentina. The other Pampa, the other half, is this one. This is a desert, and there is nothing there. With a scrub brush, Colorado River Upper Valley is the wine region in La Pampa. So in the following slide, we see that in the 1970s, the Argentine government built a canal. So in the year 2000, the same government, they decided to encourage producers to come to new regions to develop and plant fine grapes, that it was a high demand in Argentina. So one of the visionaries and that decided to invest in La Pampa are the siblings Maria and Tate Lawson, that in the year 2001, they arrived to the town of 25 de Mayo in La Pampa. And when they arrived to La Pampa, Sebastian showed them where it is. That's the region. They are at the foot very nearby of the Rio Colorado River. So when Maria and Tate Lawson arrived to La Pampa, they found nothing. There was nothing. So it's vast lands, expansiveness, and as Maria told me, a raw and untapped potential. They planted on virgin land, surrounded by 100 miles of desert, a natural barrier to maintain their ecosystem. But the truth is that as they didn't have anything, nothing, they didn't have the people to. There was nobody in La Pampa who knew how to work the vines, who knew how to work the winery. So they had to be very ingenious. And most of the wineries in the region, when they found this situation, they had to train their own people to help them. And many people became winemaker or vineyard manager just because they were available, they were loyal, and they were there. This is the vineyard of Del Desierto, La Pampa, this expansiveness. In 2003, they hired Paul House to consult with them. When I talked to Paul again, and he mentioned to me that when he arrived to La Pampa, everything he knew and had applied elsewhere, it didn't work in La Pampa. He had to start it from scratch. Something that surprised him the most was the spring frost. And with that, the understanding that he had to have a very careful management of the tannins. Another thing that happened is that one night he was sleeping in a small hotel in the town of 25 de Mayo, and there was such a big thunderstorm that knocked him out of the bed, and it rained like crazy. The following few hours later, he went to the vineyards, and the vineyards were bone dry because the winds are so hard. It's very windy. And another thing he mentioned is that the young vines are gnarly. They have age beyond their years, and they're weathered like an old person's hand. And this is all because of the effect of the wind and the sand. Like in every pioneering story, it was almost impossible, as I said, to find people. And the Lawsons brought a winemaker from Mendoza, Sebastian Cabañaro, and they trained people who had never worked before in the vineyard. Bodega del Desierto has the same cohesive team since 2003. Fabulous. So we will talk briefly about the wines from this region. I lost my papers. Okay, let's talk about the wines. Bodega del Desierto. These are the wines. They have two lines, the line 25, Desierto 25, and the line Desierto Pampa. And both of them is Cabernet Franc. Cabernet Franc is one of their most loved varieties. And in the center, they have a new line of wines that they are launching shortly. These wines do not have an importer in the US. So if you're an importer, or if you're looking for, an importer, please contact me, and I will help you to connect with Bodega del Desierto. Now we pass to the neighboring southern region of Neuquén. It's 2 hours away from 25 de Mayo. The gas and oil resources are the main business, the main industry in this region, and it's the one that probably helped to build the wine industry in Neuquén. San Patricio del Chañar, the main wine region in Neuquén, was born from a 12.4 miles long canal built of the Neuquén River. And this is the story of Julio Viola, a real estate entrepreneur who in 1999 purchased 8,000 acres of virgin land to plant fruit orchards. He was thinking more as a real estate business, selling the lots, planting tree orchards. But once he saw the landscape, he became intrigued, and he went to Europe and visited different countries. And he was in Spain and in Rioja, and he met with the president of the National Institute of Viticulture in Rioja. And when he mentioned he was from Neuquén, this man said, well, I've been to Neuquén because I did a research trip to Patagonia trying to find the best lands to plant vineyards. And guess what? He thought that the land that Julio had purchased was the best for vine growing. And that was Julio's aha moment. At that time, he said, that was my sign. He creates a joint venture with an Israeli company to build the canal, and with high frequency irrigation system, with micro sprinklers, drip irrigation. And in 1999, he plants the first 4,000 acres of vineyards. Local entrepreneurs from the newspaper, doctors, lawyers, they bought the lands and built wineries. So today we can say that if you try the San Patricio del Chañar road, you're going to see a small number, not that many, but all the producers built state-of-the-art technology with wonderful architecture. They have their own restaurants because there is nothing else in that road. So they have a wonderful opportunity, and they really cater to creating fantastic quality wines. Now, we're going to go to the location. So we are going to see this slide over and over in the different regions, just to give us an idea of what are the mileage from Buenos Aires, just to give you a sense of how far is this from Buenos Aires, the location, that 38 degrees latitude, the annual temperature, rainfall, very little rainfall as you can see, and the altitude. But the next slide is very interesting, because here we know that Neuquén has a total of 4,353. So since Julio Viola planted the first 4,000 acres, only 353 left. And we can say that this is only 89% of the country, 0.89, I'm sorry, 0.89 of the country. So of course, Mendoza has 70% of all the wine production in Argentina. San Juan has probably another 10 or 15. So we're talking that Neuquén is a mini wine region. But in the region is 48.5% of the region. And in this, here we have, I wanted to see the evolution of planted vineyards from the year 2000, 2010, and 2020. And here we can see that in year 2000, there were only 17 vineyards planted, and it grew up to 95 vineyards planted in the year 2020. So let's talk about the wines. Aicardi, Famiglia Accardi. You're going to see a lot of Italian names with these producers. The truth is that Argentina, over 50% of the population is Italian descendant, and as it happened in California, The ones responsible for the wine industry in Argentina are the Italians, like in California, like in Australia. So as they say of us people in Buenos Aires, we speak like Italians and we talk like Italians with our hands, and our Italian culture is very strong. So the Aicardi family they're descendants from an Italian family, from Italians that over a century ago, they were farmers and they had their own wines. But in 2001, the new descendants of this family founded the winery. 11. And they were dedicated to the crafting of terroir-based wines. Aicardi is also looking for an importer. So I'm going to mention here and there which wineries are looking for an importer, because I think this is a great opportunity to connect you with them and them with you. The next winery is Fin del Mundo. Fin del Mundo is the largest producer of Pinot Noir in Argentina. It's a large volume winery, but is owned by Juliana del Águila Ernequian. I love her. She's a dynamic young woman focused on exporting Fin del Mundo wines worldwide. Malma is actually Julio Viola's current winery. After participating in large volume projects, he decided to focus exclusively on terroir-based high-quality wines. And Hans Winding Diers, the name that you're going to see appearing more and more, consults for Malma. So these wines, I've been to their winery, is really a state-of-the-art, and they produce unique wines. The next winery is Bodega Patriti. When I had the opportunity to talk to Ruben Patriti, he told me that his family in Italy, they were producing wines, but when his grandfather emigrated to Argentina, they could not find a job in the wine industry. So he had a different business, but they always felt that they wanted to go back to their roots. So for Ruben, who comes from the oil business, he felt that founding in 2003 Bodega Patriti was a way to honor his grandfather and father. They focus on Merlot and Pinot Noir. And here we are, Familia Schroeder. The name implies German. Yes, in 2001, Hermann Heinz Theodoro Schroeder, the son of pioneering German immigrants in Patagonia, decided to invest in Julio Viola's project with his children in vineyards. The wines, as you can see, are produced under the Soros label. Soros, 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 dinosaurs. Why? Because they found dinosaur bones in the property. I would like to see the picture. Look at that bone. They have a whole room dedicated to showcasing the dinosaur rest that they found. And when they dug these to build the winery, they had to be stopped by the Archaeological University of Neuquén. They had to come and they were very adamant. Can they build? They cannot build. They are going to destroy. So it was a thing to consider. But this is the backbone of Schroeder. So now we go east to Rio Negro. As you can see, they have some rolling hills. And I have to go back to the history. I have to go back to Presidente Roca. Because as president of the country, he entrusted the British to build a railway system to consolidate the new territories. So the British built a railway from Buenos Aires to Neuquén. And in that train, the first train, came Ingeniero Luis Huergo, who was one of the most important and famous engineer at the time. And with him came some of his former students who had already graduated. Among his former students was the Ingeniero Humberto Canale. So this is a pioneer region. And when in the early 1900s, the Ingeniero Huergo brought hydraulic engineer Cesare Cipoletti, to build a canal and irrigation, they decided to buy 988 acres of land and planted 350 acres with Bordeaux varietals. In 1909, they built what is today Bodega Umberto Canale. They planted fruit trees, a plant to drive the fruit, and other business. So this is truly a fertile valley. After Umberto Canale's death, his brothers focused on their attention to a successful food company in Buenos Aires, and the winery in Rio Negro was left unattended. In the late 60s, his great-nephew, Guillermo Barsi, who had graduated as a winemaker, takes control of the winery at 21 years of age. Guillermo Barsi is not only responsible for the winery's renovation and the reinvigoration of the vineyards, he always played an active, proactive role in the development and promotion of the region. He's passionate about what he does. And in 1976, on the 200th celebration anniversary of the American independence, and as part of the celebrations, Umberto Canale participated with his wines on the tall ship La Fragata Libertad. At that time, Ingeniero Guillermo Barsi was with Byron Tosi, a true pioneer of Argentine wines in the States in the 70s and 80s, and my mentor. So thank you, Byron. So here we have, and Sebastian, can you help me to pinpoint the Rio Negro Upper Valley and the Rio Negro Middle Valley, and then there are two, and the Rio Negro Lower Valley. So this is the extent, it's almost 310 miles east from the Rio Negro. Again, here we have the Rio Negro IG location. We started at 20-something, we are now at 39 degrees latitude, south, and the rainfall still is very dry, 7.9 per year. And here we have the soil profile. You see sandy, gravel, slimy loam next to the river, loam textures. So very beautiful, mineral-rich soil. Now, we're going to go, how many wineries are in Rio Negro? 23 and counting. And it represents 7.77% of the country and is 41.8% of the region. So we now know that between Rio Negro and Neuquén, they have over 80% of the acreage of the region. What is interesting to see is that in the year 2000, they had 364. Can you help me, Sebastian? So 364 vineyards, but then we see that it went down to 269 in 2010 and 246 in 2020. How come? We saw in all the other two regions that the trend was going up. Why Rio Negro? Because it's an older region. And because for most of the last century, the wineries were producing high volume wines. They were not producing fine wines. So of course, we can see that the quantity of vineyards reduced because they are more dedicated to vineyards that produce low volume, high quality grapes for the great wines of Rio Negro. And now we have the wineries. Well, I spoke a lot about Guillermo Barsi. Sorry, the other wineries in Rio Negro, but they are the ones who originated a lot of things in the valley. So it's 111 years old, family tradition, legacy, and a great generosity of spirit. The first and only sustainable certified winery in Patagonia. And I have to speak that I know them very well, that Ingeniero Guillermo Barsi, I know very well Guillo, his son. They're hard workers. They truly represent what the pioneering spirit of Patagonia is all about. And the wines are fabulous. That wine there, the Riesling, Seba, can you point that? Thank you. This is an old vine Riesling from 1937. And the vine is on Parral. It's one of the only Parral vineyard in Rio Negro. And this is an old vine Riesling, delicious, by the way. And they make, of course, and they have a Semillon too. So now we're going to Verum. Verum was founded in 2001 with a purchase of 100 acres and a century-old vineyard. This is what we find in Rio Negro, old vines. And they are producing premium wines with grapes from its own vineyards. I had the opportunity to visit Verum years ago with a group of sons from the US. And we were like 15, and we were packed into the winery. There was no room to move. The winery is so small, but the wines are so big. Now, Miras. I have to make a special mention to Marcelo Miras, because he's a true icon winemaker in the region. And Marcelo, with his family, they founded the winery in 2017. It's a small state with 25 acres planted with old vineyards, and they're certified organic. By the way, Marcelo Miras is also looking for an importer in the US. And now I'm going to extend a little bit with Fabremo Mailloux. Hervé Joyot, he's a Bordeaux negociant who settled in Mendoza in 1992. He was looking for great quality, good price Malbec, and he found it. But in 1993, when he tasted a Patagonian Merlot, he became very intrigued. You know, Merlot is big in Bordeaux. And he was seduced by it. I spoke with him and asked him why. I said, well, I had to go to Patagonia. I went to Rio Negro. He met with Guillermo Barsi, and soon after purchased from him an old Merlot vineyard that had been planted in the 1960s. He has had tremendous success in Europe showcasing his Merlot. And I know that in America, Merlot has faded a little bit, but these are true quality Merlot, and you can find fantastic Merlot in Rio Negro. Now we have Bodega Aniello. Bodega Aniello, these are also very small producers that came to the business in 2010. Another Italian descendant family that the winery that they bought dates back to 1927. So you can find building. They found this building from 1927, and with 2.4 acres of vineyards planted in 1931, 10 acres of pre-phylloxera Malbec, and a vineyard planted in 1998. Very interesting wines. Noemia, what can I say? I'm going to extend a little bit because this is Hans Binding-Beer, renowned Danish winemaker, consultant, who consulted for Canale. He arrived to Canale first in 1998, and for 6-7 years he worked with them. But his arrival not only had an impact on Bodegas Canale, he had an impact on the region in Rio Negro. He teamed up with the Italian countess, Noemi Marone Cinzano, to produce superb quality Malbec, sourced from an old ungrafted Malbec vineyard planted in 1932, that he nursed back to life. I've been to the winery. The wines are fabulous, great Malbecs. But when Hans and the Countess were dining in Europe with Piero Incisa de la Roqueta, the owner of Sassicaia, Hans brought back a bottle of Pinot Noir from Umberto Canale. And he said to Piero, this is just a Pinot Noir from a friend from Burgundy. When after Piero tasted the wine, he disrobed the bottle and appeared that was Umberto Canale's Pinot Noir. And the story says that Piero called from the restaurant to Guillermo Barsi, and soon after was flying to Argentina and purchased a 1932-year-old, a 95-year-old vineyard of Pinot Noir, and now produces Chakra Pinot Noir. Very, very interesting. Canal. So today, Hans lives in Rio Negro. Noemia is his winery. He parted ways with the Countess. He's the sole producer and proprietor of Noemia, and he lives there with his wife and his children. A shout out to Hans. Now we have two wineries, Manos Negras and Vinho Cobos. What they have what is the relation? That these are wineries that are not in Rio Negro. They're wineries from Mendoza. And something that has been happening in the past 15 years is that producers from Mendoza are expanding, are seeing what's going on in Salta, what is going on in Patagonia, in San Juan. And when they find a good vineyard, they start to produce a wine in that area. And that's what's happening with Manos Negras. Manos Negras, Black Hands, is the project from Jeff Mauschbach, Alejandro Sejanovic, and Jorge Crota. The three of them worked for Catena Zapata for long, long years. And they started to create their own business a few years ago. And they're producing incredible wines. And this is one of their Pinot Noir from Manos Negras. Again, the name Paul Hobbs. This is a Pinot Noir from Paul, from Vinha Cobos, that he's just launching, as we speak, his first Patagonian Pinot Noir from Rio Negro. He sourced the grapes from the vineyard halfway to the ocean in the Rio Negro Middle Valley, with clay soils, cooler breezes, and a greater humidity. Paul told me that he was looking for a thin-skinned Pinot Noir, and that's why he found that this region was perfect for his version of Pinot Noir. And the last but not least winery is Huapiza. Huapiza is the indigenous name for a Patagonian word for whale, who frequent the nearby coast. It's just 12 miles from the Atlantic Ocean on the banks of the Rio Negro. Huapiza is the only winery in this Argentinian Patagonian terroir which bears a strong resemblance or similarities to Bordeaux. Huapiza is also a proud owner in a partner in conservation of the California Ocean Alliance. And now we are going to see a video of an underground cave. I think she has it. Luz, we can see just the screen, but we don't see the film. Just a minute, guys, while Luz is fixing the problem, okay? So I will start to tell you what's this. So this is an underground cellar at 1.2 and 1.8 miles from the coast in the underwater part of Las Grutas, a marine reserve led by visionary Patricia Ortiz, the owner. Here we are, thank you, Luz. Patricia Ortiz, the Huapiza's owner. Here they're putting the wines. These are a blend, 750s of blend of Cabernet and Malbec. And Patricia, with the University of Comahue, grounded 3 cages, were anchored at 32 and 45 feet deep to study the currents, the deposits on the bottle, and how well the bottles age when they are in temperatures, low temperatures in the river with the movement below. The finished Huapiza bottles, the Magnum and the 750 bottles, are going to be sold in the US and Argentina, but in the US they're still working on the permits because the bottles during the time have gathered all that sediment. So Patricia is not going to clean those bottles a lot. So they have sediment, so they have to go through US FDA approval. What she told me is that the wine has a surprising aromatic quality, that the wine is more expressive, there is no oxidation. So I cannot wait to taste the Huapiza underground bottle. And now we are going to Chubut. So this is a story of an avid fisherman, Don Bernardo Weiner, who owned Bodegas and Cavas, the vineyard in Mendoza, who was at the end of the 1980s, received a great, fantastic review from Robert Parker for his Malbec 1977, created by Raúl de la Mota. And he's an avid fisherman. He was fishing in Oregon and for many years, and once he had a taste of the Pinot Noirs from Oregon. And during one of his trips to fly fishing in Chubut, he had a aha moment when he realized that the landscape in Chubut was like in Oregon. And he wondered, why not plant vineyards here? And here we are. Initially, he asked a greenhouse owner if he could nurse a Gewürztraminer vine. Don Bernardo Weiner, he's of German ancestry. His great-grandparents arrived to Germany in the 1800s. In 1994, he experimented by planting the first vines in a barren parcel that was loaned to him by the local government. At the time of the first harvest, nobody in the area knew how to harvest. So Don Bernardo told me that he and his wife did the harvest to show how to do it, how to harvest. So here we see that also first ice wine produced in Argentina, that was Darío González Maldonado, produced at a winery the first ice wine. So like in Canada, we can have ice wine in Chubut, in Argentina. I love this picture. This is a vineyard, Otronia, in Chubut South, the southernmost winery in Argentina. This is frost. And what I came to understand is that as frost is a common occurrence, the wineries, the vineyards are equipped with sprinklers that irrigate the vines on the top and on the bottom, or below the canopy. The water source for the irrigation system for the sprinklers is at probably 32 degrees Fahrenheit. It's not yet frosted. But when the frost comes, because the water is on top of the vines and on top of the grapes, the sap doesn't die. It makes like a protective layer that protects the vine and the grapes from the frost. The sap is still alive in the vine. And that's how they defend themselves from the frost. If not, the vine will be burnt by the frost. So here is going to be a challenge for Seba. Seba, we have all these regions. So let's start with Comarca Andina del Paralelo 42nd. This is the northernmost region in Chubut, close to El Bolsón in Rio Negro. There's a big group of vineyard owners, but they're still working on making wines there. This is a huge group, and they're probably making wines. Then we have the 16th of October Valley. That's the one from El Hoyo. And in this area, it's like a forest with big trees, humid lakes, great resort. And Rio Pico Valley, that's where we have Trevelin. And we have 3 wineries there we are going to talk. So we go to Paso del Sapo. We have a winery there. And then the next one on the right is the Rio Chubut Lower Valley. Yeah, that's Eva, perfect. That is very close to Trelew and is close to the Atlantic Ocean. And way down in the south, very near to Santa Cruz province, we have, in Sarmiento, we have Bodega Otronia. And in this winery is the southernmost winery in the world. In 2019, the winery from New Zealand lost its place as the southernmost. So this is the southernmost winery in the world. And as you can see, it's 50 kilometers from Santa Cruz, and it's also very close to the Atlantic Ocean. By the way, Chubut is almost the same size as Italy, with 500,000 inhabitants. Italy has 60 million people. Wow. And most of these farmers, they vinify at the National Institute of Agricultural Technology. They have buildings, they have experimental wineries. So every vineyard owner can go and make his own wines at these experimental wineries. We can see that the rain is very low, but I'm sure that in the areas of Elogio and Trevelin is a little bit higher. The altitude, it goes 768, I'm sure is higher. And then the different soils. The next one, we have 6 wineries, probably there are more, but at this time we have, and represents only 0.04 of the country, and only 2% of the region. So this is a lot of vineyards, and most of the vineyard owners and the wineries in Chubut, they own just 1 acre, 2 acres, 3 acres at the most. Otronia in Sarmiento is the largest owner with 50 acres. Now, let's look at the vineyards. Seba, can you go back, please? Thank you. I have to, okay. So in 2000, 0. In 2010, 14. And now in 2020, they have 17 vineyards. And this is the growth. They're very passionate people, the people from Chubut, with those skies. Next. So let's talk about the wines. This is Ayestaran. Ayestaran is a lawyer, a successful lawyer in the east side, in the east coast of Chubut. He's very successful professional with a passion for wine and passion about excellence. And he fell in love with Elogio. His vineyard is surrounded by native forest. His focus is on the production of high quality wines that showcase the excellence of the terroir and his craftsmanship. The name of his wines are Oriundo. Now, Patagonian wines. This is the original winery founded by Don Bernardo Weiner. As of 2 months ago, he sold the winery to Stanislao Bocain and Associates. And they are redoing the labels, and they're working on the presentation. But I spoke with Stanislao, and he said that they are truly committed to continue Don Bernardo's legacy. So I cannot wait to taste the wines. And this is the 2 wineries that are in the Elogio present today. There are more. So here we have a group of 3 wineries, Casa Yagüe, Contra Corriente, and then below Nanti Fall, we're going to see in the next slide, that all 3 are located in Trevelin. Trevelin is a Welsh name for town of windmills at 6.62 miles of the Chilean border. The Welsh culture is huge in Chubut. Trelew is a Welsh name, Trevelin is a Welsh name, but also in 1875, the Argentine government granted permission for the Welsh to purchase Argentine land. So we have the Welsh culture is still strong. We can see festivals of Welsh music. And the other day, Darío González Maldonado, he sent me pictures of his family playing Irish music. And so the Irish and the Scottish were immigrants in the 1800s to Chubut and Santa Cruz. So the wine, let's talk about Yagüe. I forgot, I'm sorry, Marcelo. So Casa Yagüe was born, Marcelo was born in Patagonia. His wife, Patricia, is from Buenos Aires. Today, they love the area of Trevelin, and they built a winery, and also it's a tourist resort, and they do trekking. But the most incredible thing is that a month ago, Trevelin, because of the work of Marcelo Yagüe, got the first IG in all of Chubut. Trevelin is now an IG indication, geographic indication, because of the quality of the soil, the climate, etc. And they are very close to the Chilean border. They own 7.5 acres, and they're thrilled to be there. It's a family affair. Their 3 daughters are working with him. Contracorriente, against the current. That's the name, Contracorriente. 2 young pioneers who were the first in planting vineyards in Trevelin, specialized in wines of extreme cold climate, producing less than 10,000 bottles a year. And the last one is Nanti Fall, that has also family-owned Italian immigrants and a beautiful agritourism vineyard owned by an Italian family with a long tradition in winemaking. They only have 10 acres. So these 3 wineries, they have done the road of the wine, and they have trekking. They take pictures. They have houses where you can stay. It's truly a big touristic area. So now we are moving east, and we're going to Bardas al Sur. Bardas al Sur is family-owned and is the only producer of Malbec and Pinot Noir in the northeast of Chubut, in a Welsh town of Bryn Gwyn in Gaiman. They are very proud of what they do. And the last one, not least, Bardas al Sur, at the beginning they were vinifying at the winery facilitated by the INTA, but they have their own winery as of this year. So let's go to Otronia. It's the largest vineyard in Chubut and is owned by Alejandro Bulgerona. And I told you already that it's the southernmost winery in the world. The winery is located in Sarmiento, close to the Lake Musters in English, but the Lake Musters has the name Otron by the natives. The coldest area in Argentina, minus 20 degrees centigrade during the winter, and the average annual temperature is 3 to 4 degrees centigrade. So it's a very cold, but they have an importer. So Otronia has a US importer, but none of the other wineries that I mentioned are imported to the US. So if you're interested, please contact me or contact Luz, and we will make the connection. This is truly the story of pioneers. And before I finish, I want to give a shout out to Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is the province below Chubut. And I learned that they're starting to plant vineyards. It's something that the Ministry of Agriculture of Chubut and Santa Cruz are working on and trying to find the place. And they already planted vineyards, but this is going to happen in the 1930s. So I've come back and do another presentation on Patagonia in the 1930s, Jerry, and I will to present the wines of Santa Cruz. So a big thank you to Flor Fiorenza from Vinos de la Patagonia, Argentina, because she helped me a lot to produce this presentation. Marcelo Miras, Darío González Maldonado, and of course, Vinómanos. And the Mirador Juan Cache, that's the one who had the picture of the nightfall, the beautiful starry night. And then our friends of the Argentine Texas Chamber of Commerce. And I cannot not mention Wines of Argentina, close to my heart, because I worked with them for many, many years. Thank you. And of course, thank you, Luz. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Nora. So if you would like, we can start with the Q&A. We have a lot of questions here posed for you. I don't know, Jerry, if you will want to add some Q&A as well, if you have any question in particular.
Well, actually, I want to thank you very much again. It was such an intensive and far-reaching presentation, and I learned a lot, which is good. Thank you so much again. And now, basically, there are lots of requests trying to see whether they can contact you to get a copy of the presentation, and also get the contacts of distributors and sellers here in the United States. So I give the floor to you, and of course we will also put this event in our YouTube official channel, which is Argentusa. We will let you know later, and so that you can enjoy Nora's very thoughtful presentation.
Yes.
As long as you like, it will be there forever. Thank you
so much. No, thank you. But I want to mention, I don't want to forget that I know that some people, representatives of the press, have attended this event. And if they're interested in samples, to please contact me. Mind you, only representatives of the press can ask for samples, and I will get the wineries to send you samples for you to taste. Thank you again.
And of course, last thing, all of our friends will be soon invited, as long as we can overcome this COVID pandemic, which has prevented us from doing an event the way we used to with Nora here at our embassy in Washington, D.C. Of course, we will resume that very nice tradition, which makes us so proud to offer the best of our country. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Nora, two specific questions.
Yes.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about the grape varieties and percentage by region? And also we have a question about these wines getting into Ontario, Canada. If you could talk a little bit about how these new wines, new trends are getting into Canada, that would be great.
I think that some of these wineries are exporting to Canada. What we can do, to the person who asked, we are going to find out which wineries are exporting to Canada, and we will send you that information. And the Canadian market is a big market for Argentine wines. So yes, and regarding the varieties, they vary from one region to the other. We have the Malbec, of course, is the most planted, but then they have Cabernet or Merlot, but I don't have the numbers of which ones are the most at this time. I can send you that information. I'm very much interested in the rarities, the Gewürztraminers, the Rieslings, the Semillons, and of course, Pinot Noir is widely planted in Patagonia.
Okay, great. Nora, do you think I should write your email here in the Q&A? We have a lot of questions regarding not only the slides, but also about bringing the product here into the US, which are the distribution of these products here, not only the importers, through with the 3-tier system. So I could put your email here, right? So everyone can contact you, and they can also ask directly for the slides.
Yes. Okay. That's fine. We can work together on that. So, but I have something to say at that respect. That what I recommend always, I think that the embassy sent you a list of wineries that are represented in the US. So what I usually say when say, well, where can I find it? I said, go to your local wine store and ask them to get it for you. And then you help us to open a new account for Patagonian wines. There are some that are widely distributed in the whole US. There are some who have regional importers, and just try to find them and ask for them.
All right, thank you, Nora. And one last question that I am also, here there might be people who really knows about wines, but there's also people who are not that much familiar. If you would say, what are the distinct elements from the wines that comes from this region in comparison to the regions we already know? What would you say those are the notes and the most distinguished elements?
That they have a great balance of acidity and fruit. That are wines, as you can see, this Pinot Noir is bright, but also has power. And they have great aromatic profile. They're elegant. Wines from Patagonia are elegant. The cooler weather helps for elegant wines. They're aromatic, very aromatic, and beautiful and tasty. So what I will say that the main characteristic is the balance, the elegance, and the great acidity.
Great. There's a question here from Fabian Rodriguez that he's in Los Angeles. He's asking, is climate change, what range of temperature and dry conditions, are those factors about making this wine so distinct?
I think about climate change, Patagonia will benefit of climate change because what's happening is everything is getting warmer. So Patagonia still has ways to go to be warmer. But I think that what it always benefits of the Patagonian winds, that they're very strong, and that also has a huge influence. So we can say that Patagonian wines, while they have these strong winds, the great dramatic thermal amplitude, the luminosity, so much sun for so many hours a day, that helps for the slow maturation of the grapes. In Patagonia, you have the situation where the sugar levels, the volume increases rapidly while the tannins are still have not matured, they have not ripened. So the winemakers have to pay attention to harvest at the right time where the tannins are mature on the vine.
Thank you, Nora. Another question. Do you recommend any material for reading and written material regarding Patagonia and Argentine wines in general?
Well, you have the website of Wines of Argentina that has a wonderful section on Patagonian wines. But then also, Bodegas Canale, they have a book on the history of their winery throughout the years. And we can post in the next few days. Luz, we can send a list of books and things that apply to Patagonia. Look for the Welsh culture. I found so much about these Welshmen in Patagonia.
And yet another question.
That's fine, that's fine.
Everything you have to say. So with this type of wine, do you have any recommendation about pairing with food? Any specific pairing that you would like to recommend to people?
Well, you know, when you go to Tuscany, you say, well, the wines taste beautiful in Tuscany because of the Tuscan food. In Patagonia, you have fantastic fresh produce. And also you have the trout, as I mentioned, the Patagonian lamb. But definitely these wines are meant to be drunk with any food because they have the whole array from high whites, aromatic whites, to whites aged in oak. And then you have Pinot Noirs that are very light, and then Cabernets and Malbec. So definitely it can pair with any food. But if you are in Patagonia, get the Patagonian lamb.
Thank you, Nora. Any other comment you would like to share with the people here participating on this webinar?
No, I thank you very much for coming, for being here. And I hope that we can meet face to face again very soon. And I thank Jerry, the embassy, Maria Luz, Sebastian, and Sergio, Pablo, to all of you. Thank you for facilitating this. And thank you very much. Till we meet again.
Thank you so much, Nora. So I don't know if everyone had received Nora's email. If not, we will be sending to each and anyone participate for them to get to your email and ask for the slides and any recommendation apart from this. Thank you.
Yes, yes. All the best. Thank you for coming. Bye-bye.